Well, good morning, maniacs, and welcome back to WMMA Mania. This is episode 22. I am your host, as always, Drake Riggs, here to bring you everything going on in the world of mixed martial arts when it comes to the ladies specifically. My goodness, we had quite a loaded weekend of action this weekend this past week with the return of Invicta, giving us plenty of good fights there on a Wednesday. And Bellator went down, UFC London, and now this weekend we get a bunch more with UFC 277, very important one in the main event there. And then the beginning of the super atomweight tournament over at RIZIN 37. Cannot wait for that. Very, very exciting. Lots going on. Got some very interesting fight news as well. Not a whole lot today in that department, but there's still plenty to discuss. So should be a good old time. Thank you so much for tuning in if this is your first time or if you are returning. And one or the other, please, of course, visit MMAmania.com for all your MMA needs. And don't forget to follow, like, share, and subscribe on all platforms. And you can even hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. You don't miss a thing. We'd greatly appreciate it. The like button goes a whole long way. So if you could hit that guy at least, we'd greatly appreciate it. But with that all out of the way, I'm sure that there are a lot of going to be a lot of interesting comments here today, at least talking about the last between the links that we had, and feel free to get them in. It was a good old time this past Thursday over on the MMA Fighting YouTube channel. But how are we all doing? And this is exactly what I was expecting, as James is here and says the real champ is in the house. Jed robbed you of your streak, which makes me angry. Yep, as I was talking to Ghost afterwards, I fully expected that to happen. Completely. I'm not surprised whatsoever. But hey, it is what it is. As Rain says, Drake beat Mike Heck. Jed's still crying how you dominated him 60-43 times. Yeah, I mean, I expected the actual poll to be closer than the Jed ones against Mike, but it was, yeah, from what I saw, it was either tied or I was winning. So, you know, the tag team stuff should be fun, though. Makoto says, I'm not happy that Jed made you lose for no reason. Well, I do think I didn't do very good in that last round, and we did go overtime quite a good bit. So there is that. But Ghost says, the true champ returns in the event of a draw. The champ retains his belts. Let's take it to the board. That is a great point. Yeah, you don't lose the title off draws. You do not defend. I don't think it technically counts as a defense, but you didn't lose it. So yeah, the belt stays. Great point, Ghost. I'm glad you mentioned that. Citro says, I should have won and not happy and will commit his life to make Jed lose every time, just no matter who he's against. All right. Jersey, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in from Facebook. Says Pena versus Nunes 2 will be a war. Yes, it should be. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk about that obviously during the preview, but it's interesting for many reasons. As Rue says, I was right every single time. How is the winner normally crowned? Well, by the vote. By the vote normally, Rue. So yeah, we didn't get the that last round that we generally do, but hey, it is what it is. Like I said, I'm not super upset about it because I just wanted to face somebody else, as you guys know. So that was good for me, but not good for me at the same time. Anyway, let's get into the recaps, get the show really rolling now. As I did mention, Invicta was back this past weekend with Invicta FC 48 in Denver, Colorado. That was one of the best parts about this whole thing. And what's even funnier about that is, as we know, that the Kansas City commissions, whether in Missouri or Kansas, are absolutely atrocious. Just hands down, bottom of the barrel, worst commissions in the game. The funny thing about them going to Colorado and having a better commission was then they didn't even need the judges as much as maybe they would have normally, because there were only 2 fights on this card. They went to decision. I think we had the main event Then Verbeek and Parker. Yep, just 2. So they didn't even need to didn't need the judges necessarily in this one. And we still did get some kind of odd scores, at least, and some people thought it was an odd score. If we just jump right into the main event here, Tanisha Tennant retaining her title, the Bantamweight title, against Olga Rubin. Split decision. One of the judges who had Tanisha winning had it 50-45, and I saw a lot of people were kind of not so sure with that, but I can understand it. That wasn't how I scored it. I thought this was a pretty clear, at least pretty comfortable 48-47 for Tennant. I mean, I can understand the argument the other way for Rubin, which a judge did give, but the 50-45, I don't think that's crazy either. I could understand like all 3 of these scores, honestly, but a lot of people thought it was pretty crazy. I do think, like I said, though, that the most likely or the most reasonable card was 48-47 for Tennant, giving her what the I think all the middle rounds. No, the she lost the first round, and then I don't remember exactly which ones I scored it for, but it was kind of a weird fight. Kind of a weird fight in terms of, I mean, it kind of went how expected. I wasn't sure if Rubin was going to have as much success with her grappling maybe as she did, and we got some very tricky, interesting positions there at times. There was what the kind of modified triangle buggy choke that she was threatening with there. I believe that was in the second round. So that's kind of where things get a little bit fuzzy. But that was cool. You'd never see that. It didn't work, didn't submit her with it, obviously, but just seeing that thrown up was very interesting. I've never seen that in an MMA fight, the way that she did toss that out there. So not a terrible loss for Olga Rubin. It was competitive with the champ and whatnot. Just kind of, I think, had less in the tank down the stretch, and it ended up costing her. So Bernardo pulled off a much needed rear naked choke against Yana Gadelia, the short notice replacement there. So good win there. Christina Williams beating Liana Perosin. That was a little bit of a shocker to me. You guys know I was very impressed with Perosin her last time out, her last couple fights actually. But Christina, I mean, pretty much just capitalized perfectly off of a slip from Perosin. Like, it wasn't a knockdown. She was totally off balance when she fell there. And then Williams just jumped right on her and got her neck. Like, she was looking fine until that point, just straight up. That is kind of the definition of getting caught in a somewhat of a scramble. So great job by Williams to capitalize on that, and a very nice win. And for Beacon Parker, I actually did miss this one, but I did see the flying knee that she landed in the start of the second round, the highlight there. That was very cool. You don't see flying knees too often from the ladies, so I'm always all about that. Leibrock, pretty solid performance there. Obviously, went out there and got a submission of her own. Pretty much, smothered Fryer and got into that position, just breaking her down over the course of that first round. And Autumn Norton had a pretty good finish as well. So this was a pretty good, as Larry David would say, night of action for Invicta in Colorado. And, I hope that they continue to stay out of Kansas City. That's all I ask. And we will have some more Invicta news to talk about, obviously, once we get to that part of the show. But, yeah, and it was kind of an interesting combination of commentators as well. We had Julie Kedzie, who's always there, but then Eve Edwards was the play-by-play this time, with Megan Anderson also providing the color. So that was just kind of a different feel. It's kind of a different feel. I wonder what happened to TJ. I don't even remember the last event that he did commentary for. It's been so long, but yeah, solid event as mentioned. So going back to the BTL talk, Rue says it should have been a tie. That's what Casey said. That's what he said at the end of the show, that it was an even tie there. And yeah, champ retains. Good point. Jin says bad card for the UFC. I don't know about the rest. Yeah, we will get to that. Was definitely not as good as the other UFC London card. And Citra says the UFC card had to be worst of the year. And then was Invicta any good? Yeah, as we just broke that down. I mean, it wasn't a very good UFC card, no. But worst of the year, I'd have to think about some others. There were some that I really didn't enjoy a couple of months ago. James says, will I be at UFC 277? No, I will not be. I will just be in Vegas for Contender Series tomorrow. So that is it. Just a day trip. I would have liked to stay, but I have a whole lot of stuff going on still with those weddings and whatnot that I was telling you guys about a couple weeks ago. So busy with some personal stuff before I can get back to a big UFC show. But maybe by the end of the year, we shall see. But yeah, I'll be in Vegas tomorrow for Contender Series. And Rain says, man, the UFC card in London was hard to watch. The best part was just looking up Drake's live tweets for entertainment. Well, I appreciate that, Rain. I wasn't very tweety on that day, but hey, anything's better than nothing, right? I appreciate it. And Makoto says, any standout performances on this card? I mean, like all the fighters who finished, like those were solid finishes. Adam Norton was a good one there. But like, yeah, in terms of an overall performance, I think she'd probably be the one that, was most impressive. But I don't know, Christina Williams capitalizing on kind of that just entire sequence to get the finish was very surprising to me. So I'd say it's between those two. Like Tennant, yeah, congrats to her for getting this championship experience, continuing her title reign, but I still don't think she's quite like, she's not there yet, if you know what I mean. Not UFC ready. And I was going to say Bellator ready either, but she's 135. They don't have a division. She has fought at 145 before, but I don't know. Still kind of need to see more out of her before I can get some higher expectations. And that Danielle Wolf fight being competitive doesn't really help that either. So, and that was a while ago, obviously, but yeah. So Alvin says, what a great weekend of fights. No serious injuries except for Mr. Aspinall. Wishing him a good recovery. Yeah, that was a colossal bummer. 15 seconds. 15 seconds is all it took. Man, that sucked. That was brutal. We have two knee injury main events in the UFC this year. Blachowicz and Rakic. And then last week there was the shoulder. Things are cursed right now. They are a little bit not good. Haven't been anyway with the injury bug. And Sammy says, hello, good to see you always, my friend. He says, saw the Invicta card. Pretty good. Better than UFC London card. Yep. I mean, again, not too hard to top. Jumbo, very nice to see you as well. Would Drake ever become the Invicta president? And what would you change if you did become the Invicta president? Well, I don't know how likely that will ever be, Jumbo. I think Shannon is doing a great job of that, but I'm sure you will not be surprised that the number one thing I would change is getting out of Kansas. As I've already alluded to, that has been the biggest problem with Invicta throughout its entire history. Like, open scoring's fun. It is cool that they allow that. I'll give them that, but not necessary, not needed. I would rather we have good judges and referees than ones who let you know during the fight that they're shitty, because there have been just a countless number of absurd robberies in scorecards over the years in Invicta. So many fighters have had their careers impacted and affected by just complete ignorance, like awful. Like more than any promotion I could tell you. Like I don't even think it's close. There have been so many terrible, terrible decisions, not just with judging, but like how fights results are handled, like rules and whatnot. It's just so bad there, and it's not getting better at all. Aside from them being creative with things like open scoring. But again, I'd rather have you be good than let us know that you're shitty while the fight's going on. And ridiculous things like when Amy Montenegro got submitted. She got submitted literally by Celine Haga at the very end of the fight, but the time expired, even though she was unconscious, and they still gave her the win. Like, just a lot of silly garbage in that regards. Like, you can hate on one for some things, but they're doing it. Like, this isn't an Invicta thing. It's not an Invicta thing. It's the commission just being dreadful. So that's what I would change, Jumbo. That is easily what I would change. Just move locations. Move locations. I'm sure it might be cheap there and whatnot, but obviously it's not too beneficial aside from that, I guess. So I don't know. But thank you, James. We'll definitely hope for that as well. And Rain says, but it was worth watching your scoring of the fights that were boring because I did not want to score them live. Okay, well, I appreciate that. Yes, always got to get the scores in. Yeah, wasn't too hard of a night to score either. And Jin says, how can Invicta get better judges? You got to move. Like I said, just get out of there. Go to different locations. Citra says, can Invicta be the biggest, fourth biggest promotion in the world? So what we would be behind, obviously, UFC, Bellator, RIZIN or one, PFL, take your pick there for the third spot, I guess. I don't know. That's always an uphill climb. And the more that they kind of let people go so easily, as they just lost Karina Rodriguez, as we talked about last week, I think it's hard. It'll be hard for Invicta to be that big globally. And like we talked about last year, like Deep Jules was passing them up there, and still you could argue that they're much more active, at least had been for a while. So I don't know. They might not even be the best, women's promotion anymore, which is very sad to say, but still very good. We do love Invicta, but they still have they're in a very weird spot right now, I think. And Rue says, is Tennant good at stuffing takedowns? Can she improve that, or is she too old? I think there's always room for improvement there, Rue, but she's all right. Like, she got taken down in this fight, so she still has some things to work on. Like I said, I'm not totally sold on her going very, very far, but we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. RJ Birtle, good to see you. A new name. I says, hello, I heard about the show on SCMP. You have a lot of fans. I had to check the show out. Well, I greatly appreciate that, RJ, and I'm glad that you knew what time the show was on. Yes, I heard about, I was getting contacted by my boys, Tommy T and Nick Atkins, saying that everyone was being very complimentary. So that is very, very nice to hear. I appreciate it so much. Guys are way too kind. Way too kind. Seriously. It means a lot to me. Jumbo says, lovely ideas. Glad that you agree. And Sammy says, Deep Jules better than Invicta? Why? Well, they have plenty of great fighters. And kind of the main thing that I was referring to there in that comparison is, just the activity levels in terms of them consistently putting on events and good events too. Like, you look at kind of the people that are coming out of there, like they're pretty similar for a lot of reasons, obviously. But when I look at that consistency and giving fighters opportunities and whatnot, they just had a better year last year and have been better recently, and that's kind of the way to look at it. The production's fine, obviously don't understand the commentary or whatnot, but it's always a good time with Deep Jules. It really, really is. Not that it isn't with Invicta, and not that there can't be bad decisions sometimes over there, but they're very different. But my main thing there was just the activity levels from Deep Jules in recent, like the last year and a half. It hasn't been very close. And look at what Deep Jules has produced with Sekizawa, Suryoshima. Even Hime, Morisuda. There's so much more kind of standout talent right now, I think, as well, if you want to look at it that way. But yeah, that was Invicta FC 48. So good show indeed. Probably maybe the best show of the weekend. We'll see. This was a pretty good one too. Bellator 283 from top to bottom had a lot of madness, and including the fights that we're about to talk about right here. As Vida Ortega, oh shit, I just full screened myself. She defeated Vanessa Porto via second round submission, a guillotine. This is crazy. This is a bigger deal than people, I think, realize, just in terms of, the legacy that Vanessa Porto kind of has. One of the best flyweights of all time, has only been finished, well, now 4 times, twice by TKO, by strikes. And this was her second submission loss ever. The last time was in 2012 at an Invicta show. Against Sarah D'Alelio was like a reverse triangle armbar, like something weird. So she is very, very good at not getting submitted typically. But for Vita to kind of catch her with this guillotine, that was pretty stunning. Of all people, like no offense to Vita, but I didn't see that coming. Certainly did not see that coming. And she was her scrappy old self, as predicted in this fight, though, as she usually is, was very aggressive. I thought that Vanessa was doing pretty well, though, early on, and she kind of seemed like she gassed out or at least tired a bit quicker, definitely a bit quicker than normal as we got into the second round for sure. But her right hand was finding home. It was very, very on point, specifically in that first round. That was a punch that Vita just really did not have too many answers for. So that was landing kind of at will for Vanessa and not really rattling her too bad, but it was some good impact on that thing. And I'm not quite sure how I'd score that first round, but Vanessa did pretty well, I thought. And yeah, it just seemed like she kind of tired out. So I don't know if there was maybe, don't want to make excuses for her if there was injuries or anything, but that was very out of character for her to slow down kind of as much as she did. And, you know, there was some pretty solid body work from Vita too, but I still don't think it would have been enough, but you never know. Fighting's a weird thing. In the end, she gets the guillotine. Impressive. Very, very impressive. Vita Ortega getting back on a little roll here. So now she puts herself in an interesting spot where it's like, that's the biggest win of her career, I'd say. I mean, my goodness. To finish Vanessa Porto is no easy task. So, hey, we could maybe do Kana versus Vita next, depending on what exactly they are going to do with kind of the top of the title picture there. But that one kind of stands out to me as the most likely, or at least most logical possibility, perhaps. Kana been training, was in Hawaii recently, and got to meet Max Holloway and stuff there. So shout out Team Kana, get the flags out. But I don't know. It's a very interesting time in the Bellator flyweight division. That is for sure. And Centro says, was I surprised? Yes, I was. I definitely was. Definitely was. And Go says, I didn't see this. Was it a crazy barn burner or a surgical performance by Ortega? Kind of neither. Like I said there, it was pretty competitive, and she was getting blasted with that right hand pretty consistently. And Vita, she always brings the high pace in your face. Maybe that's kind of what wore Vanessa down, really. Like she's seen it all, but again, it was very out of character for her to kind of tire the way she did. As Rue asks, what did I think of her gas tank? Does she normally gas like that? Nope. So yeah, that was odd. That was very odd to me. Don't know what happened there. But Jersey, shifting gears a little bit, says, why did most of the fighters UFC London not fight for the finish like Patty and Molly? Well, I mean, I'm sure that they did. Those two, obviously, they fought a lot more for it than, I guess, they fought for it most obviously. But they were very energized by the crowd. I mean, clearly the two most popular fighters on the card. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Just that energy, I guess. The fuel is the best way to answer that one. And Jimmy says, was there any other fights on this Bellator card? Not from the women, but yes, there were plenty of other fights there, Jimmy. Tofik, the former RIZIN champ, he starched Sydney Outlaw in under, 30 seconds. That man's the best lightweight in Bellator. He's already beat the champion, so he's going to do it again. Tofik is awesome. And Usman Nurmagomedov is very good as well. The Douglas Lima fight, I didn't get to catch that, but apparently wasn't too great. He lost his fourth in a row. Kind of a bit of a fall from grace there. But yes, no, appreciate it, Jimmy. All good. No worries there. As Esther is here, good to see you. Says, hi, if you have the opportunity, can you ask Dana if he will go back to Singapore next year? Next year, yeah, that should not be a problem. Definitely planning to ask Dana some stuff tomorrow because not expecting a whole lot of media to be there. But yeah, that shouldn't be a problem, Esther. She says the atmosphere was electric for Whaley, and I was sitting at a section where people from China and Macau and Thailand were cheering her on. It was amazing. Wish I could go back. Well, yeah, I'm sure they will 100% go back, whether it's next year or a different time. Esther, like that event was maybe the best of the year, as we've talked about several times. So I'm sure he will be open to that idea, whether it is, how soon it is and whatnot. So yeah. But 275 was great. We know that. We know that. But all right. Now we'll move on to UFC London, which kind of an interesting event to talk about, no doubt about it. What did somebody ask here at the beginning? Say something about it. I don't think it was anything too specific, but we will start off with Meatball Molly at flyweight, defeating Hannah Goldie via first round TKO, spinning back fist and punches. So at 352, are we really surprised? I mean, maybe by the method that she was able to do another spinning back fist, spinning back elbow, excuse me. I said back fist twice, didn't I? Spinning back elbow. Clearly not as clean as the first one. Going to be very difficult to replicate that. But, this was perfectly placed in terms of the position Goldie was in and to go and launch yourself with that maneuver. But are we really surprised? We kind of knew what this matchup was, and that was the result that they could have best hoped for. Goldie kind of did a decent job nullifying things early, but didn't really have success aside from that. This tells us pretty much nothing, though. Nothing aside from the fact that Herb Dean is still terrible, if you want to talk about that kind of stuff, because I don't know what he needed to see from a fighter whose face was literally down on the canvas. So that was frustrating as always. But great moment for Molly. It's really annoying when you kind of see these matchups get made so blatantly. And she's better than that. And we've kind of seen it. She's fought better competition and should be fighting better competition in her next fight. Like, this fight didn't need to happen. It was just kind of for this moment. We know how these things can go. And yes, it's MMA where anything can happen, but this was always what essentially was supposed to happen. Maybe not in the exact way as mentioned, but Miranda Maverick's been calling her out now, and I think that fight makes some good sense. Somebody around the back end of the top 15 should be who she's getting, especially when she's already been there. She's already been there. It's like her career in the UFC has gone in a very reverse kind of order. It's very odd now that she's kind of becoming a star. They're taking it back a step when they don't need to. And I'd be surprised if they were to continue to stick with this kind of method. I doubt that will happen, but you never know. Something like Miranda Maverick or whoever is like 15, I don't even know exactly at this moment, would make sense because that's 3 in a row now. So she's back on a good winning streak. And then you can sell this spinning elbow thing if you want. But yeah, there's not too much to talk about with that performance. A great win for Molly, but it was expected, right? Sammy says this was bad. Jimmy says he thought it was dreadful. And Go says manipulative BS. Yes, against a girl not comfortable doing anything. If you were cheering this, then we have a problem. Well, you can tell that to the crowd. As Rain says, how can Whaley get layups like this? She's only fought the best and 115 the past few years. I know she gets title shots, but not easy fights anymore. Well, because she's at the top of the division, Rain. Molly is not at the top of the division. We've seen this kind of thing with countless people before, right? I mean, Paige Van Zandt. No, what's the one? Well, Livia Souza, that was a terrible one, I thought too, but they both fought Alex Chambers. So no offense to Alex Chambers, but she came to mind there with Paige fighting her. And then obviously some other matchups that she had. Sage Northcutt was getting co-main events fighting people like Cody Pfister. But yeah, the Livia Souza, Alex Chambers debut for Olivia was mind-boggling at the time. Still one of my least favorite, most absurd matchmaking choices that there has ever been. Yeah, just a lot of weirdness there. As James says, you guys called it, but I do have a question for you and Ghost. When is the best context to land a spinning back elbow or any spinning technique? Well, I mean, we've seen it's all about timing. Look at Sergio Pettis. Look at Molly's first elbow. I mean, this one is fine too. That one was obviously more of a chance thrown out there rather than off a break or something like that. But yeah, we'll see what Ghost says here. As my guy Alex is here, what is up, sir? The newest member of the MMA Mania family. So give him some love. Working on all the socials. So that's been great. And I will see you tomorrow, my friend. So, yes, good to see you in the chat. Ghost says the best time to throw a spinning technique is either against a fence or against someone moving towards you or off a missed kick for counterbalance. So, yeah, there you go. Sammy says, do you think Molly will get more layups like this? She wants Valentina's sister. Oh, that's right. She did mention Antonina. And as I already said, I'd be very surprised if they went back-to-back layups in a sense. They fucking should not. But you never know. You never know, but I don't think that'll happen, especially with the winning streak now. Her wanting someone like Antonina specifically, like funny kind of story to build off of there. Why not? Antonina just won. Like, that does make sense too. I wouldn't be mad at that. I think the Maverick one, that probably does make the most sense. I like it. They've talked about each other already. Miranda wants it a little bit more, it seems like. But like I said, someone around that back end of the 15 range makes sense for her. I think even Alex himself did a poll on Saturday asking who should be next for Molly, and I think Macy Barber got the most votes last I checked, which that's obviously a pretty decent jump there. And I don't even know if the UFC would want to do that, considering kind of both of their trajectories and current momentum. But that's a fairly interesting matchup. And best case, highest reward out of likely options, I suppose, for Molly. But no, she has a lot of options. I just hope that none of those options are similar to this one. Sharon says, I missed the show last week, but why were you angry at this matchup? It's easy. Fights, not good for the sport. Well, yes, Sharon, indeed. But it's just like, yeah, doesn't make any sense. Somebody's trying to fight their way up, climb the ladder, prove themselves. But when you can see kind of through everything, where especially off of the victory she had before, right? This insane, nearly once in a lifetime type of knockout. And then you match her with a fighter who is coming up in weight, is a strawweight, usually, majorly in her career, and is 1-3 in the UFC? She 1-4 now. Either way, has only had one win in the UFC and just has been out a while. Like, all these factors had been out a while. I know she came back recently, but there was a injury gap that she did have. It's just not ever a good look. It's all about building up one person, which you never want to do that unless you're the business side of things, which then it makes some sense. But from a fan perspective, you should be able to see that. As Ghost says, the less spoken about this fight, the better. I will say this Molly does have decent infighting, but against Goldie, not impressive. Good finish, but come on. There you go. Cinder says, I thought the only good fight on this card was Patty and Jordan. Yeah, that was an enjoyable one. We saw some very, very cool moves out of Patty there. I mean, the way he trapped the arm at the very end and the sequence of very kind of, I don't know, angled, modified standing arm triangle, rear naked choke type hold that he had him in against the cage and then landed some knees before, going to the ground and trapping the arm and getting the rear naked choke. That was a beautiful ending sequence there from Patty. He had some trouble there in the first round, got taken down by Jordan, which doesn't help your thoughts about how he'll do against better people in the division. Like, he still has a lot of work to do, but that was some very good stuff there in the final sequence for sure. But Patty still has a lot to prove, man. And a great post-fight speech, by the way. If we're gonna give some love there, we definitely should. I'm sure Alvin was all about that, as we all should be. Very nice to see him kind of shout out the stuff that he did, and very kind of sad stuff to deal with. But it's okay to not be okay, as they say. And I was about to move on from UFC London, which we probably should, but there is one more fight, so let's gloss over it really quickly here, as Victoria Leonardo did earn a 30-27 across the board unanimous decision against Mandy Bohm in one of the more forgettable fights that you will see. I don't have a lot to say about this. As I just said, it was very forgettable. I'm very perplexed by Mandy Bohm. I am. I think that she did do pretty well, actually, though, in the first two rounds. Specifically, the first round, I could have seen an argument there. Like, she landed some pretty good shots. And I mean, throughout the fight, she really did too. It just kind of came down to Leonardo controlling her. Obviously, as you can see, she had 2 minutes at least in every round. That was pretty much the best thing that she did, was able to get control. If anything, this has just proven to me that my God, Mandy Bohm, she dodged a bullet by not fighting Liz Carmouche in Bellator, because holy shit, that would have been a rough night for her. I wouldn't be surprised if she's cut after this one. You never want to see someone lose their job, and she has shown some good signs of potential, but after these first two performances in the UFC, it ain't good. Kind of exposed a little bit, I would say, especially against somebody like Leonardo, who, again, she does everything pretty all right, but I would not say she really has much of a strength specifically anywhere. And I feel like this fight perfectly showed that. Still good enough to get the job done, but don't see things going anywhere significant at the moment. Can always change, but I think I've already said too much about this fight, so we can not anymore. Oh man. As everyone's curious what Ghost wants to think, and he doesn't feel like it. So yeah, let's just move on. Let's just move on. It was what it was. Well, it didn't open the night, did it? But it was one of the very first fights of a pretty forgettable, actually not as unforgettable London show as the first one this year, but that one overall wasn't too great. So that was UFC London. As we get ready to move on to the news now, as we do, just what, 1, 2, 3 bits. What about 7 fights or so? And these first two are very exciting, so we will go back to the Invicta talk in the atomweight division. You think, if you saw the show, you know where I'm going, and if you've been keeping up with just the news cycle, it is the atomweight title fight coming up at Invicta FC 49 on September 28th. Jillian DeCourcy, a past guest co-host of the show just a couple weeks ago, she's getting her title shot against Jessica Del Boni, two Phantom Punch Breakdown recipients. So she gets her wish. Jillian DeCourcy requests her title shot after that crazy knockout against Lindsey Van Zant. And here we go. Invicta obliges. Shannon says, sure, you got it. And I mean, options a little limited at the moment, unless you're going to do some crossover stuff. But after that kind of knockout, ain't mad at it. Should be a very, very fun fight. Good matchup. Love them both. So it sucks that somebody's got to lose again, but this should be a very, very fun fight. And we got to wait till the end of September for it. So that sucks. Fingers crossed everything stays intact, but got to feel happy for old Jillian, who's finally getting this opportunity. She's worked so hard for, and then Del Boni looks to keep on proving how good she is, which is very darn good if you have been watching. So That's going to be a good time. Excited to see what else gets added to that card. And they have not, if you notice, they did not say where this fight is yet. So fingers crossed that it's not in Kansas City. I'm going to say that every time we talk about Invicta now, just to kind of put it out into existence and push them away from there. And I know that Shannon and Julie live there. And that is the home base. And it always will be. But the more we can get away from it, the better. Especially for this fight. let's get this fight a location that it deserves. Like, I don't know, California, even Texas would be better. I know a lot of people hate Texas, which they should. They're not good either. But trust me, anything is better than Kansas City. And I mean that. So congrats to Jillian. That'll be a fun one. A tough one, but a fun one, as they are both very talented individuals. And a solid little announcement poster there. That was a good looking bit of artwork. And all right, now we move on to the strawweight division for a fight that kind of upsets me for matchmaking purposes, but stylistically, I'd like it a whole lot. And I'm talking about Marina Rodriguez versus Amanda Lemos going down at UFC 280, the big one in Abu Dhabi, October 22nd. Lemos, as we talked about last week, just submitted Michelle Waterson, turning things around right here to take on Marina Rodriguez, who obviously one of the tip-top contenders in the division, arguably deserves that title shot, as myself and many have been saying. But that doesn't matter anymore. That doesn't need to be talked about now. But for her to take on Lemos, who I love me some Amanda Lemos too, very fun to watch. For her to be Marina's opponent next and not someone like Rose, highest risk, lowest reward. We talk about that kind of stuff every now and then. I mean, what the fuck, man? I'm sorry, but UFC, what are you? This drives me a little bit insane from that perspective. From a fight perspective, this should be awesome. I really like this. I think that they both present some very interesting challenges for one another. Obviously, Lemos has one of the best killer instincts in the entire division. She packs some serious power. So does Marina, but she has kind of some issues getting pressured, back against the fence. We talked about that recently. Marina can definitely do that to her, expose her a little bit, has some reach advantages. The ground game of each, seeing how they go against each other potentially could be interesting there. We don't generally see Lemos try to take things to the ground unless she's really struggling. And even then, I still feel like it just kind of happens for her. So I think this fight could majorly be a fun stand-up battle. But like I said, with all that in mind, this just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't know. The only thing that I'm thinking here is it seems pretty obvious. We knew Weili versus Carla was going to happen anyway, but it's got to be happening either on this card or the one after, the 281. And that seems like that to me is the only reason Marina would do this. Is like, all right, I'll fight anybody as long as I know. All right, we'll get that out of the way. We'll fight at the same time and then win. They both win. It lines up. Boom. There you go. Because there's no reason for her to take, this fight of all fights. Like if it was Rose at some kind of different timed event, sure. I mean, the name value is way more there than it is with Lemos. So like, that's just what I got to be thinking behind the scenes. There's got to be maybe some promises, or she knows that the title fight's getting booked either maybe on this card. You really want to get nuts with 280? Sure. Or month after 281. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this whole thing. Just kind of wild. And in these cases, like I feel like it always happens, that title challenger is right there. That person who is maybe the number one contender. They've been working so hard. They've got this great winning streak. And then UFC's like, we're not quite ready to give it to you. We're going to give it to someone else over you. John Fitch treatment, maybe a little bit. And then they lose right before they win the fight. That is a lock. That could be the case. You never know. Like I said, Amanda Lemos, very dangerous. I don't even need to say that. Just look at her wins. She usually wins via finish. And if she doesn't, she hurts you in the process. So it's an interesting fight. It really is. But man, it's a risky one. It's probably the riskiest fight Marina could take outside of like Andrade, really. It just in terms of like, the danger on the totem pole. But hey, props to her for risking the biscuit. Props to her. So can't go wrong at strawweight. So that's the thing, right? Like the fights are always going to be good. Do they make sense? Clearly not. Clearly not always. But that's just what we're working with. So, all right, as we'll move on to the last bit of news here before we get to the comments. To see you guys, don't you worry. But we did, speaking of Deep Jewels earlier, we did have some matchups announced for Deep Jewels 38, the next event on September 11th. So both of the women's promotions will be coming back in the same month. You'll love to see it. And we will start off with, there were 5 announced, at least 5 that I saw. Typically pretty good at keeping up with these. But the first one we'll talk about is a rematch between Aya Murakami and Mori Suda. So that is going to be very interesting, especially now at this stage where Mori has gotten a whole lot better. Still, I don't even think she's 18 yet. She should be turning 18 maybe this month or in a couple weeks. But let me see. Is this microweight? Because I would imagine, because Aya Murakami's been killing it at microweight, and she does have the win over Suda, and I believe it was her debut. Murakami is undefeated still. What is that? 47? What does that say? 47.6 kgs. What does that translate to? Oh, okay. So this is an atomweight fight. All right. So yeah, I mean, I would imagine that Mori could make microweight. What, 98 pounds, I think. But I mean, Aya Murakami is very tiny. I think 410 maybe. Very, very talented though. So yeah, okay, this is an atomweight fight. So there you go. She'll be going back up in weight, looking to beat Suda once again. Grappling should be a good old time in this one. I'm pretty sure that I have seen their first fight. I just don't remember it too clearly. I'm pretty sure it was an armbar for Murakami. I know that she did submit her because I think all of her wins, except for maybe one, have been via submission. Very talented submission artist she is. Let's see, I'm pulling it up right here. Oh, that was a decision. Okay. So at Deep Jewels 30 on my birthday in 2020, which I believe was the same day Sekizawa debuted, but she's finished everybody since then. So that's kind of where my confusion was. All right. So yeah, maybe I didn't see that fight, but I'll have to go back and rewatch to get ready for this one. Suda, obviously been on a tear since then. They both have looked great since that fight, of course. So that one is very exciting. Looking forward to that for sure. Would love to see Aya Murakami in RIZIN at some point, but again, she's very tiny. She's been liking her time at microweight, so kind of interesting. She's going back up for that one, but and then we have these 4 other ones here with some notable names. As you can see, Yuko Kuryu taking on Hime, who got the win over Sarioshima, so that's going to be interesting to see her back, what she can continue to do. Mizuki Furuse back in action too, taking on Momoka Yamazaki. Kate Lotus and Eru Takabayashi. There's another one of our favorites. Love to see Takabayashi in action. She could use a win here, of course. Kind of a tough matchup, but hey, got great striking for her youth as well. And seems like she's taken a little bit of time, at least what she missed the last Deep Jewels event, right? So probably refining some things. Looking forward to seeing Takabayashi always, but very much so in this fight too. And I like the little tape on the poster here. That's funny. Nice little touch. And Mika Nagano is also back. She takes on Tomoko Inoue. Still going strong is Mika Nagano. So good for her. She got the win her last time out as well. So, a lot of familiar faces. And that's all right. Some fresh matchups, though. Looking forward to that one. I'm sure we'll still get some more added on. Maybe a title fight. We'll see. I mean, what's Rin Kai doing? Find her someone to fight. Why not? You never know. But yeah, good start for Deep Jewels 38. I don't hate it. Don't hate it at all. But all right. What are we saying here, everybody? As Jimmy says, he's very happy Marina isn't getting the title shot and has to fight someone difficult and down. Okay, well, that's fine, I guess. You can be happy with that. But I mean, again, we knew she wasn't going to get it. Makoto says, hey, go Jillian. Who are you guys rooting for? All right, so I'm sure that everyone will be on Team Jillian there, as much as we do love Del Boney also. James says, how cool would it be if Jillian uses a Del Boney Fan Punch breakdown to beat Del Boney, then have her on the show again? Hey, maybe she will. Maybe she will. We'll have to ask her about it. Serene says, go Jillian. RJ says, is Del Boney versus DeCourcy a close fight? I saw Del Boney's last fight. She was very good. Not sure about DeCourcy. I think it should be pretty competitive, yes, but I got to stay unbiased as well. And I do think Del Boney is one of the best in the world for a reason, as she's proven that. Not to say DeCourcy isn't either, but certain spots on the ladder here and what we've seen from Del Boney, she's been just excellent lately. So I think she should for sure be the favorite in this fight. But DeCourcy does present a lot of interesting, challenges as Del Boney does for everybody as well. But I think it will be more competitive than the Zapatella fights, RJ, that's for sure. And she was robbed in the first one, so don't even need to mention that. As James says, Lemos versus Marine doesn't upset me at all. Whaley getting a title shot, baby. That's pretty much what it solidifies. Like, again, we already knew that was going to happen, but now it just is a matter of when they'll announce it, right? So James says, is Lemos versus Marina going to be like Whaley versus Joanna 1? Well, James, I think we've talked about this before. I don't think any fight is ever going to be like that again. At least that's a hard one to replicate. But it can be crazy to a degree like that. And I think that's fair to say. I don't know. I don't know how each of them would, and it's only 3 rounds. That's also important to note in that comparison. But how their tanks, at least Lemos's, would hold up with that kind of pace consistently, like that. That was the craziest thing about Joanna Whaley 1 was the pace. I mean, my God, they were literally nonstop the entire 25 minutes. Not many people can do that with that kind of aggression. Sammy says, didn't Marina have a chance to fight Whaley at 275? If so, then no one should be complaining. She had a chance to fight a big name, but didn't. That is a fair point. Yes, that is true, actually. As he says, for a title eliminator, no less. That is a great point. Jimmy says, off topic, but Drake and Ghost was right about timing the step. I tried in sparring, worked well for the first time. Then when I got tired, I couldn't do it anymore. Very nice. As Jimmy says, mainly for Drake, do you find it incredible that Volk and Whaley can use this strategy for 25 minutes? Exactly. I mean, it's very impressive, and there's a reason that they are some of the best in the world, because they could do these kind of things that other people just simply cannot. Let's go. Says Eru Takabayashi, girl of the podcast. There you go. Yes, that's the most popular Fan of Punch breakdown. I haven't checked the numbers, but I don't think that one has been surpassed. Takabayashi had the best one in terms of views, so good for her. I wonder how that happened, but good for her. Like, people interested. Mary says, hi, Drake. I thought you won a BTL. Whaley said that she will go to Fight Ready if her fight is scheduled in the U.S. Is that a good idea? Well, first of all, appreciate you thinking I won. And no, I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea if you're going to fight in the U.S., and why not work with the same team who has helped you out pretty well, as we've seen in these last 2 fights. I see no problem with that whatsoever. It makes total sense, really. So yeah, I think it's a good idea for sure. I think, I mean, any fighter kind of in that situation, if they have a spot that they're good and comfortable with and it's working for them, you should definitely do that. Avoid the kind of time shifts as best as you can in preparation and whatnot as well. So, as Ghost is asking about his analysis, let me see here. What do we got? As he says, Marina is talking about Marina and Lemos. They are the best when the opponent is coming forward, especially Marina, struggling cutting the cage against Jion. And he says Marina's best advantage on the feet is her low kicks and oblique kick. They are, yes, good. And Lemos has no other leads on the feet, as seen on the Watterson fight. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how they each deal with these kind of things. Sorry about that, Ghost. I thought you were replying to somebody specifically. Esther says, opposite of what James said, would Whaley versus Marina be like Whaley versus Joanna 1? I think it'd be more likely to be like that because I think Marina has more similarities to Joanna than perhaps. Well, I guess you have Whaley in both those equations, but that would seem more likely, yes. Because, I mean, you have one half in there with Whaley, so automatically. But either way, there's different approaches to every fighter for some, and we know Whaley does that as well. So, again, it's just one of those things. I don't think we'll see it again too soon, if ever, unfortunately. That fight was just one of a kind. One of a kind, truly. But all right, let's get out of the news cycle here as we move on to the events happening this weekend. And we're going to start with UFC 277 and close out with the good old RIZIN tournament coming up. So UFC 277 going down this Saturday in Texas. Speaking of Texas, which we mentioned earlier, was it Dallas, right? We'll be starting with the flyweights as Jion Kim faces Jocelyn Edwards. And I think we might have even talked about this in the news last week because this was a replacement fight, right? Kim was supposed to take on, I don't even remember who, even though this was recent. Apologies there. Who was it? Who was she supposed to fight? I'm going to have to click now. Kim was set to fight Agapova. That's right. That's right. And then it was kind of that case of, is she getting a tougher replacement now, at least in terms of the matchup? I think potentially so. And obviously, this is an absolute must win for Fire Fist. As you can see here, the 3 fights skid. Tough opponent, Grasso. Meatball there. And then Priscilla Cachoeira, one that I know people thought she should have won. Kind of a crazy, absurd fight. But again, hey, as you guys know how I feel, if you don't take down Priscilla Cachoeira, then you pretty much deserve to lose. So I'm sorry, Kim. And she's actually the underdog, just ever so slightly, despite the short notice, which I think that's fair. When was this last one? It was almost 3 years ago when she beat Nadia Kassem, who was also a little bit, got to the UFC a little too quickly, and I don't think she's fought since then. I don't even know if she's fighting anymore. But these are 2 of the longer flyweights, or no, this fight's at Bantamweight, isn't it? Should be. No, it's at, there's no way. Edwards just had the fight with Ramona. Okay, I'm learning here. Ramona at Featherweight. You're telling me she's going to cut to 125 on short notice? I don't know about that. I mean, I'm going to trust that this is right. But don't be surprised if she misses weight, everybody, because that's pretty nuts. And I know that was at 275, which was a month and 2 days ago now. Feels like longer than that. My goodness. Time's been slow. But that seems a little wild to me. And I'm sure she didn't have to cut too much for 145, but that's still kind of a very interesting timeline of adjustments and whatnot. But I was talking about the reach differences here. Pretty even, 5'7" to 5'8", 72 to 70. I mean, Jocelyn Edwards, her activity in the last fight with Ramona was just absurd. She was so active, throwing out about as much as you could. Some serious, oblique action there that she was landing nonstop. I mean, the way she was spamming them, pretty much spamming them out there. It's crazy. The volume that she had against Ramona. See if she can keep that up here against Kim. It can make things very interesting. Kind of frustrate her with just as much as she can put in her face. And for Fire Fist, man, it's like, I don't know what she needs to do anymore. I think she just kind of needs to say fuck it and go out there and get crazy. Obviously, you really need this win, but make Jocelyn uncomfortable. We've seen her struggle with her grappling defense, and Ramona had some nice shots with the knees in there. Try and maybe replicate that in the clinch to the body. You got the tools to do it. We know you got the tools to do it, and she's insanely tough. But again, the reason I go back to the comparison with the Agapova matchup compared to Edwards is we know that Maria is very, very dangerous very quickly, but then if she doesn't finish you, she's pretty much spent. And for someone as tough as Kim, I think she could have weathered that storm. Whereas in this case with Edwards, you're probably just going to be taking a little bit of that storm in a prolonged fashion because not many people have been as aggressive finishers as Agapova has shown to be, at least against most opponents. But again, if you can kind of prevent that by stifling your opponent and making closing the distance and whatnot, I just don't know. Kim hasn't given us any reason to believe that lately that she can kind of make these needed adjustments. Like I said, she didn't even try for a single takedown against Priscilla Cachoeira. It drives me absolutely insane. Drives me just up a wall. So I think everything's pretty fair here in terms of the odds. I'm fine with that. Edwards looked very solid in that fight with Ramona, but I'm very perplexed though about this flyweight thing, because if she is making that cut, and she's a pretty fine fit bantamweight, like that's her division. She's going to go from 145 to 125 on a couple weeks notice in less than a month and a half. I don't know about that. So just trying to cut could really deplete her and give Kim a better chance. But my goodness, that's an odd dynamic. That is something. As Ghost asks, who would come forward in your opinion in Lemos versus Marina? Because that's the key to this matchup. I could see Lemos being, well, I don't know. When you look at the Waterson fight, she was very patient in that first round. Unnecessarily, as we saw her just in the second round. But against Marina, like if she fights that it's hard to tell, judging by that last performance. She maybe was just kind of cautious because of the Andrade loss. But if she can wipe that away, like, I don't know. It's a tough thing to predict there, Ghost. But I guess if I was to go off of that and her wanting to, it's a toss-up. It's a real toss-up. I think that it'll kind of be more on her than Marina to dictate that, at least early. So I don't know. That's a 50-50, man. That's a coin flip question. As James says, I was going to have you ask Fire Fist what it was like to train with Weili for the end of her camp, because we got to make it about Weili. Yes, always got to make it about Weili. But I have not talked to Fire Fist before, and obviously don't have the time now. Unless she wins, and even if she loses and goes on to do stuff, we can figure it out. But yeah. As RJ asks, what are your opinion of Fire Fist boxing? She seems like a good boxer, but I haven't seen anything else. Well, that's the weird thing about her, right? Is she has this like super extensive background and like the accomplishments in numerous striking arts. Like so many different types that I can't even list them all. I can't even remember which all they are, but like, kickboxing and things alike. I know that's one thing, But yeah, she really just boxes a lot in MMA, which is the weird part considering everything I'm saying here. And she counters and is pretty precise more often than not, but she's just slow, man. I don't know. She's just very slow. And it's been rough. It's been a rough stretch, obviously. I feel like I don't even need to say it because you can go and watch the performances. But yeah. As Rue says, do you think the weight cut will affect Edwards, or is this fight at 135 since I saw Kim eating a baked Alaska and various sweet foods on IG stories? I don't know. I mean, this would make a whole lot more sense if it is at 135. Now, obviously, Kim is normally a flyweight, but Edwards normally a bantamweight, coming down from 145. It seems insane to me. I don't know. I don't know about that. Spart Helder, good to see you. Says, the famous Drake Riggs mentioned on SCMP. What makes you so great? Well, I appreciate you tuning in and coming over from the companion this past week. Thank you so much. And I don't know. That's not for me to decide, Spart. I don't think I'm that great. I really don't. So very kind and unnecessary kindness that I've been shown. So just thank you for tuning in. You can decide for yourself, or others can tell you. But I don't think I'm that great, so I can't say. I really don't. Jimmy says, Whaley improved her wrestling to a high level in 10 months and still counting. Can Esparza improve her striking in that amount of time before she fights Whaley? I mean, she can improve it, but can she improve it enough to where it will matter? I doubt it. Of course she can. Of course she can improve it, but she's got to really go out of her way, really work on some things. And to get to that level in that amount of time, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. And Makoto says, is Edwards a big flyweight? She will be if she makes the weight. Yeah, she certainly will be. She is very much to me, seems like quite a solid bantamweight. As Go says, Kim's been training at Bangtown for the past 3 months with the Hickman Bros and John Yodpetch. All the ladies go crazy. Advantage for Kim. That does help. Yeah, getting, I think, changing things up from Syndicate. She was seeing maybe it wasn't working. At least not that she's obviously getting completely away from Syndicate, but good to, check things out there. As the ladies go crazy indeed. So, yeah. All right. Now we can get to the main event. As I believe RJ was the one who mentioned the rematch being a war, but you know where we're going? It is, speaking of bantamweights, the bantamweight title fight rematch between the bantamweight champion, Giuliana Pena, and the featherweight champion, Amanda Nunes. I bet you guys forget that she is, Amanda Nunes is still a champion. I forget myself that she is still a champion because featherweight doesn't count. So yeah, here we are. The rematch of one of the biggest upsets of all time. I was there for that one, and I still can't really even believe it. But here we are, and Giuliana Pena is still the underdog. Smaller underdog this time. Plus 230 to the minus 275. I'm fine with that. I am fine with that. Same reach, 2 inches of height, advantage to Nunes. So the thing with this fight is I think the most intriguing or important elements about this entire thing are completely unrelated to the actual kind of fighting and skills itself. The Nunes, she was coming off of the COVID battle. You can look at that. Maybe she was not fully recovered. And I mean, she did mention that she had a terrible, terrible camp. Of course, these can always be looked at as excuses and yada, yada. But I mean, you look at how quickly and uncharacteristically things changed for her in that second round, kind of leads me to believe it. Like, that was just very bizarre and not Nunes-like. And props, of course, to Pena for managing to get in her face and pull things off the way she did. But still, that was not your typical Nunes in that second round. First round, however, that was, because I think everyone likes to completely forget about the first round of this first fight because Nunes was stomping the yard with her. It was your typical Nunes performance. Wasn't close. Like, Amanda was beating her quite easily in the first round. It's just such a tale of two different rounds, right? So if she comes in now, obviously changed up camp and everything a whole lot, she says she's feeling a lot better. Of course, she's going to say that, but there's been plenty of time. If she is all good to go and healthy, and let's say that was a big factor, I see no reason whatsoever. And even if she's still not 100%, or who knows, you name it, I just struggle to see this fight. Well, Nunes not having a lot of success as per usual, but I feel like it should probably look mostly like that first round did again, just throughout the entirety. So, unless, Pena obviously been working very hard herself to kind of still has a lot to prove. I mean, she's still the underdog. People expect her to lose this fight, man. As they should. It was a big upset she had the first time, and maybe people did remember the first round because it was just such a night and day difference. And really, still, I think you can say that Nunes is the better fighter, especially when you look at their skill sets practically everywhere, except for maybe wrestling. You could give that edge to Pena traditionally. But even then, she didn't have very much success there against Nunes the first time around. She beat her with the sloppy kind of striking madness, gassed out. So it's just, I feel like that first fight was just one of those crazy instances where Nunes ended up looking potentially exposed or really bad because she didn't get things out of the way in the first round. Who knows? I mean, we obviously wouldn't even be talking about it, but let's say all the same factors were there, right? It's one of those things where sometimes you don't get to avoid those situations, if you will. But in this one, and her having gone through that is also like that first loss, I just think she's going to come in even better. And I mean, we already know what she's capable of. Like the odds of her having such a switch flip negatively, just for that to happen again, which is exactly what Pena will need, I'd be stunned. I'd be very, very stunned. So, Go says, well, it turns out all you have to do is exchange with Nunes, no matter how bad both boxing looked, and slip your head slightly. So when Ronda's coach is saying head movement, he was right. Well, I don't know if I fully agree with that, Ghost, because if you look at exchanging with Nunes, Cyborg did that. Didn't work well for her. Did not work well for her. I mean, that's like what the best case in terms of throwing down the way that they were in the second round. Like, I know GDR obviously landed on her well and had her hurt in that second fight in their rematch, but they weren't throwing bombs, obviously. As says, do you think the more technical fighter will win this rematch? Yeah, and that's going to be Nunes. Like, we know that Giuliana Pena is not very technical, especially with her striking. It's never been good. Like, it has gotten better. It has gotten better, but man, there was a time. I will never forget Pena's fight with Jessica I. I was just so stunned by how sloppy of a puncher could be still so highly ranked. Like, she was still one of the best, but it was like, wow, she's getting by really much primarily on her wrestling. So she's gotten better, which that's clearly not saying a lot, but she's never been very technical in that aspect for sure. And James says, are you hoping Pena wins this despite her too? No, not really. No. I mean, yes, she is a fellow Washingtonian, and it was great getting to chat with her. But no, I'm not really feeling favoritism in this one. Sorry, Giuliana, if you see this, but as Go says, no, he does not think Nunes is a good striker. Striking is about tricking people, and she doesn't do that. She's a great fighter because of her power, and people are afraid of it. Well, that's the thing, right? She doesn't need to trick people because of what you said exactly right there. they're already afraid, so she doesn't have to work as hard, maybe. Got a good jab, good right hand, and a good low kick, not to set up very cleverly. So, yeah, again, they're like, she hasn't needed to do that. So, as resistant lightning strike twice with Pena. Of course, it always can, but I don't see her being the one to do it here. Like, look at here. Here's a good example, you guys, right? Two of the biggest upsets of all time happened within that same month. Nunes versus Pena and Izawa versus Hamasaki. Look at how different those first fights were. Those first two fights. As I said, Pena getting completely smashed in that first round, managed to turn things around. Nunes has kind of this weird shutoff. Whereas with Seca, completely dominant the whole time. The whole time of that first fight. And the second fight went on to be obviously a little bit more competitive, but she was still pretty firmly in control. Gets the job done again. Not as easily, but still pretty comfortably. Just look at the first fights, though, and comparatively. It was already competitive when you won. So the rematch, is it going to be less competitive? Very rare that happens, unless you're something very somebody who's very lucky. I don't know. I guess that's a good way to put it, but yeah. Henko says Whaley has ridiculous power and she does clever things. Same with Rose. Well, yes, of course. Not to say that people can't or won't and don't do that, but again, you look at those competition levels as well. We can all agree that the strawweight division is better than the bantamweight division. There's no doubt about that. So sometimes you have to adapt to the pool around you, right? So, and we talked about the comparative striking last week too. So it's one of those things, I would say, anyway. But all right, that is UFC 277, you guys. I think we can wrap that show up there. But we still got one more to talk about, as I did just mention Ayaka Hamasaki. So we will get to one of the GOATs here in a second, one of the other GOATs. But yeah, 277 in Texas. I forgot that it was not in Vegas there for a second. As Jin says, good point. Do you think being clever as a striker is important, even if you have power? Yeah, I mean, it's always good in terms of, well, especially then, because it's like, you can at least protect yourself a little bit better and manage to avoid damage in theory and get into less kind of exposed situations just because you have your power that you can throw down there. So yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt. As we do move on, though, to RIZIN 37, as I mentioned, and Rue starting us off here with Hamasaki versus Aguilar. Why haven't we seen it in the past? Or why haven't we seen that yet in the past? Well, we were supposed to, Rue. It was supposed to go down at, what was it? The Vale Tudo event, I think, in 2011, when Megumi and Aguilar had their rematch. And then an earthquake happened that year, that obviously week, whenever it was, and kind of canceled things, and they just never got set back up again. Timeline's a little bit all over the place, but yeah, so that's why. And they kind of went their separate ways, obviously. But we will get to that fight in a moment here. We'll start off with one of the other ones. But I guess this is a great time to shameless plug for you guys, because Broad Horizon episode 17 is coming this week. I'm thinking Wednesday at the latest. I'm not fully locked down on the time yet, but shameless plug. Broad Horizon episode 17 will have 6 of the 8 women competing in the Grand Prix. So I talked to everybody except for Anastasia Svetkivska and Jessica Aguilar, who I was hoping to. I was trying to get to all of them, but we did our best. So we got 6 of the 8. And they will all be on episode 17. Very good stuff there. So that's Reina Kubota, Kana Sakura, Siwoo Park, Ayaka Hamasaki, Sekizawa, and Laura Fontoura. You can look forward to that this week. Good stuff there. Good fun show. All dedicated to the Grand Prix, because why not? And we'll start off with that one with Reina against Anastasia Svetkivska. The very first fight of the tournament, not the first fight of the night. But Reina will be starting things off, and she'll get to the winner of this fight will get to watch everybody else in the first round. So that's kind of a good, fun spot to be in. I mean, not that they can't watch it, but they can watch live, as it's unfolding afterward. And this will be Anastasia's RIZIN debut. This will be Reina's officially returning to the division, dropping from 112 pounds, where she's generally been having her kind of special Reina weight fights. And she'll have to be back at 108 for the first time since July 2018 in her Kana Sakura rematch. So with Anastasia here, you can see these 5. These are her amateur bouts. I believe she's undefeated throughout those as well. And so she's one of the 2 newcomers, at least the newcomers who are prospects, because this will be Jessica Aguilar's debut in RIZIN as well. But the 2 wild cards of this tournament are Fontoura and Svetkivska, who are kind of more unknown than the others. That's kind of what I was getting at there. And Svetkivska also dropping down from strawweight and has a pretty good length advantage here. As you can see, 5'7" to 5'3". Reach, don't know what that is, but that'll be an interesting dynamic for Reina to work with. A fantastic striker herself. If you guys saw that the Miyu Yamamoto fight, her last victory right there, 7 months ago now, kind of crazy. Perfectly timed knee on the takedown, closed the show. She was struggling a bit there because, of course, Miyu's got great wrestling, and if you can get a hold of Reina, that's typically your best bet. But Svetkivska, in her limited MMA experience, just 24 years old, has been one to show that she's got some pretty good striking as well. Can whip things out on the ground with submissions. Armbar right there, as you can see, a couple of those. And her 2 professional fights have been TKOs, or at least stoppages by strikes. So she's pretty versatile at this stage in her career, but for her to be as good as Reina, that would be surprising. Reina, obviously one of the best strikers among the women, especially at atomweight, but I think you can make that case across all divisions, really. And, she had a very competitive and good fight there against Siwoo Park. And, we did talk about that on the show. Siwoo Park, though, is very good as well. But this is a very tough debut spot to be in for both of these, the young newcomers in Svetkivska and Fontoura, who we will talk about later. But yeah, Svetkivska, in terms of experience, it's pretty night and day here. This would be a pretty big upset if Anastasia can pull this off. Not to say it isn't possible. She could definitely catch Reina, and she probably should try to get her to the ground, because that's just where your best bet is typically going to be against Reina. So on the feet, definitely expect Reina to work some of those patented body shots that we haven't seen too much of lately, but she's got plenty of body shot knockouts in the past, and that's always fun to see. Body work, this is kind of one of those tailor-made matchups with a long-bodied opponent where she can work that pretty nicely. You would at least imagine. And she should at least try, and I bet she will. So yeah, looking forward to that. These are all very interesting in their own right. As we have some Aguilar questions here, we'll get to her. As Sintra says, has she ever made 105? Aguilar beat Carla, and Whaley finished Carla, so Carla has no chance against Whaley. We're not doing MMA maths. Somebody did this a couple weeks ago. We're not doing MMA maths, intro. Does not apply. Does not compute. But no, this will be her atomweight debut as well, so that's interesting. And Jen says, when Taylor fought Aguilar, who did you score it for, Drake? Can't really ask Ghost because he's never watched Taylor fight. Yeah. No, I did think that Jessica just edged that one. It was actually a good fight. It was better than your typical Taylor fight. So, I mean, that bar isn't very high. But no, I thought it was a fine one, especially for Taylor standards. It was good. But I did think that Jessica just edged it. I don't remember the exact rounds. I'm pretty sure they're on MMAdecisions.com, but I thought it was 29-28 for Jessica. Maybe 1-3 if my memory serves me correctly, but it's pretty close, competitive. But yeah, not too bad. Henry says, is Jessica a good grappler? I saw her in Tisha's corner versus Dern, and she was yelling at Tisha during sub attempts. Yeah, her strength is 100% her wrestling, for sure. And, Jessica is an all-right boxer, but she's definitely much more of a grappler. And, yeah, she has been training with Tisha lately, so that's good stuff to share for each other there. Cinder says, does Reina get special layups like Molly in UFC? Well, she has. She certainly has before. This fight right here could be viewed as that. It definitely could be. So, especially compared to some other ones. But no, yeah, Reina, let's see. Like the Alvera fight, as you can see right there, 0-3. That was a complete layup. I think it might have been short notice, though. I'm pretty sure it was. But since then, she's been pretty good. Like Lindsey Van Sant, not a layup. And this was their rematch right here. They had the fight before the Alvera one, I believe. And then Tamimatsu, not a layup. One of the most seasoned pioneer veterans in the strawweight division. Miyu, obviously one of the best atomweights in the world. Siwoo, one of the best as well. Beat her. But then we do, yeah. Anastasia, comparatively, very much so. Centro, that's certainly fair. And Kimball says, hi, have you ever covered an event in Japan like RIZIN? No, I've never been to Japan yet, Kimball, but I'm absolutely dying to go and hoping I would love to, I'm definitely going to cover RIZIN at some point. I have to. I've been wanting to do one of the New Year's shows, so maybe we'll see. We'll see what this year holds. Not going to hold my breath, but I do want to go once everything is fine for traveling in Japan. I'm 100% going to get out there, but I'm not quite sure how restrictions are looking now. I know it's getting looser, but that's kind of a big thing as well. As Mary says, I hope you will not be offended, but I was watching your interview with Jion earlier this year. I speak Mandarin, and it was very uncomfortable to listen to her talk, very awkward. What can she do to get better at interviews? No, not offended by that, Mary. I mean, you're not saying anything about me specifically, but her. I don't know. I think she's just maybe a little bit shy. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I can hear what she's saying and all that, but I don't understand the specifics until it's translated. But yeah, I mean, I've noticed that she kind of is seems a little bit introverted in some ways, but that's what kind of makes it better when you can get a smile or a laugh out of somebody. But I still enjoy talking to her, and of course, she's one of my favorites too. More people, the more experience you get, the better that helps too. And as Mary says, I know Whaley is good at interviews since she has had jobs like receptionist and teacher and other jobs, so she's well practiced with interactive people. Yeah, see people interactions, but not everyone have those. Exactly. And Jen says he scored it for Aguilar, just more volume from her striking. There you go. So yeah, I was kind of surprised by that. And Rue says, why do you think Aguilar never took Taylor down? Will she take Hamasaki down? Well, we'll get to that here in a moment. We will. Don't you worry. All right. But before we do, we will talk about what I think is the best matchup in this first round in terms of, well, the matchup actually. Maybe not the most intriguing storyline-wise, because I think the Hamasaki Aguilar one is definitely up there. But Kana Sakura versus Siwoo Park, I mean, this is a banger. This is a banger. This is actually the only of the first four fights that is between the top ranked fighters, right? Reina is obviously one of the best. Hamasaki, number 2 behind Seka. But Aguilar making her debut in the division. This is the only, top 5, top 6 matchup where 2 top-ranked fighters are going against each other. Kana Sakura versus Siwoo Park. This is where it's at for the opening round. Same height, don't have their reaches. Coming off of some good wins here. Obviously, Kana beating Sarame. And UFC, not UFC, what the hell? RIZIN 35, I think, was on that one. And then Siwoo coming off the Eric Koga decision and the Reina Kubota one, which I still need to go and watch that one. It is up on YouTube now, so shame on me. But Siwoo did tell me she was not very happy with that performance, so she's not really trying to think about it. But obviously, the Reina win was a very big deal for her. Big one there. Very close, very competitive, but in the end, she walks away with it. And Siwoo Park is one of the better strikers in the entire division. Has good power in her hands, as I'll always allude to that Hikaru Aono knockout she had a couple of years back. Was it this one? Nope, that was Nice instead. But either way, it was a couple of years back. Slight kickboxing background. She did fight Rena Panchan in a kickboxing match. Didn't go her way because Panchan, of course. But here against Kana, this is a tale of kind of two strengths. I don't want to say a striker versus grappler because Kana's striking has gotten significantly better as she has improved and continue to grow and gain experience in MMA. But Siwoo is going to have the advantage there. Just with most of the stuff that she does, but on the ground, obviously, Kana will want to take it there. And I think that the skill gap is a lot larger on the ground than it is on the feet for each of them. And so that favors Kana in that area. You know, she's very, very tough too. I mean, you think about the times that she's lost, typically not a finish, and the last two opponents beat her majorly using grappling, and they were both splits, which is kind of crazy. Oshima and Hamasaki, that is. So Kana Asakura is just always game, always in it, always threatening. And we've seen Siwoo struggle a bit there. And if you want to not do MMA math, which we're not going to do, but look at how certain fights played out, Siwoo got submitted in the Oshima rematch. She does have the win over Oshima a while back, where she was just able to completely stop the takedowns from Oshima because she was just kind of spamming them out there, not very well, sprawling very nicely. But it hasn't been too difficult for people to get Siwoo down when they really try. And someone like Kana shouldn't have any trouble with that, honestly. And unless, and hopefully, Siwoo has been training her wrestling a whole lot, her defense with Miyu Yamamoto, that crazy B, which they have been training together. And these two have actually trained together before, just before this fight. So they kind of know a little bit what they're capable of. Obviously not to 100% capacity, but that's always something. So it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. As Rue says, Will Kana, not the Army, just style all over the park on the ground. She should be able to. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say she should, but she 100% should be able to. And yes, Jin, she did lose to Panchan in kickboxing. Is Park striking going to be good? Yes, like I said, she's one of the best out there. As Ghost says, I don't know. I haven't paid attention to Park. Drake probably has a better idea. If she does clever things, then yes, I'd say she is. If it's straightforward, then no. Straightforward is in no tricks, not as in running face first. Well, yeah, you never want to run in face first. But yeah, no, Siwoo is quite good. I mean, when I think about times that I have to go back. I still need to watch this Koga one. Like I said, I'm very curious to know why she wasn't very happy with it. But I mean, that's always a good indicator of things. But I guess Reina was doing very well. And other than that, though, like that was a competitive one where someone was able to keep up with her striking. People really haven't been able to hang with her too much in the striking department. So as Sammy says, I saw the Phantom Punch breakdown with Panchan. Should kind of just spam front kicks like Panchan. I mean, she could, but the thing with Panchan is like she is one of the lengthiest fighters out there, and her front kicks are excellent. Like that's one of her best weapons for sure. It's gonna be harder to do for Kana, but yeah, I mean, sure, it's never a bad thing, especially when you're fine going to the ground. Like if it gets caught, not too much of a problem with for Kana. I mean, she could eat some stomps or whatnot, but yeah, Panchan's front kicks are kind of in their own world. As Jimmy says, Siwoo good on the ground. Oshima could not submit her, or is that a different fight? No, Siwoo did get submitted by Oshima. Not in the first fight. She beat her in the first fight. Still had some scares, but in the rematch, Park dropped Siwoo. She dropped her, had her hurt, and then rushed in too crazily and got caught in a submission. It was kind of crazy. A quick comeback of sorts. So, yeah, she got caught in that one. And yeah, Panchan's practically like 8 feet tall. so yeah. But all right, we're going good overtime here, you guys. So let's continue on. Try and wrap up these last two effectively, but a little bit quicker if we can. As the throat's drying out and I'm quite hungry. But we are now at Hamasaki versus Jessica Aguilar. Jag, 2 former champs, 2 pioneers. Former World Series of Fighting champion Jessica Aguilar versus the former RIZIN champ. And I mean, practically Invicta champ, you name it. Hamasaki has all the titles. She's won belts everywhere she's been, literally. Has maybe the most title wins out of any woman ever. It was 11 last I checked, I think. So here we are. Both looking to rebound. And on paper like this, it looks way worse. But we know that Ayaka Hamasaki is absolutely phenomenal still. At 40, they're on quite different levels at these stages in their careers. Who knows? Maybe Jessica Aguilar will have a resurgence at this weight class. And even though she did look a lot better in the Danielle Taylor loss, which was quite a while ago now, obviously she looked better than in her Marina and Weili fights, which she did not get the easiest go. And there was Claudia before that. Had a lot of injuries in the UFC, though. That was a big thing for Jessica, unfortunately. And so, as we said, the wrestling is definitely, I think, Jessica's strong point, and just couldn't really find it as easily as we like to see, typically, in her fight with Taylor, as was mentioned by one of you guys. Appreciate that. Sorry to not remember who specifically said, but I don't know how much of like a size advantage she'll have or anything like that. She's always been a pretty tiny straw weight, and she's always said that, it would be more realistic for her to go down than to go up in weight, and now she's making it happen. So very cool for her. And as for Ayaka, I mean, she's fought a straw weight as well, but she's the best atom weight of all time. Still going strong, still dangerous everywhere. With Aguilar, I mean, she just mixes it up better. We know that much. Good kicks, good stick and jab. She's got that good movement. The ins and the outs, can switch it up all day. And then on the ground, you're never too safe. So I could see this, honestly, as much as I do love Jessica Aguilar as well. I love both of these women. I really do. I could see this fight being fairly similar to Hamasaki versus Miyu, because I mean, that's probably the most relatable style that I could compare Jessica to recently that Hamasaki has fought, and just kind of seeing how she's continued to do things against Sayaka, even in defeat, especially that last fight. I could see Jessica getting caught in something. She's just she's been out for a while. Even though she did look better in that last fight, like you're going from the top tier, the Weilis, the Marinas, and you drop to Taylor. Still don't pull off a convincing enough win, and then you go right back up. You go right back up to Hamasaki, like kind of a bit of a roller coaster kind of ride a little bit in terms of opposition. So yeah, I mean, that's the best case, though, I think, for Jessica, is to try and smother her and make it ugly. Try and work from a lot of half guard if you can. Utilize those new weapons, knees on the ground and things alike. But for Hamasaki, like, I think she has just most of the advantages everywhere here. And that should not come as a surprise. As RJ says, who is Panchin? She seems like she gets a lot of love from the chat. Is she a great MMA fighter? She is one of the best kickboxers on the planet, RJ. Yeah, arguably the best female kickboxer on the planet. So Rina Panchan, Rina. She's very good. She is very good. And we'll see if she ever gets into MMA. But Kimball says, forgive my ignorance, but after watching a Fan of Punch breakdown on Hamasaki, why hasn't she made it to the UFC? She is clearly very skilled, and her jiu-jitsu is very good. I used her Kimura trap while rolling and swept my training partner. Awesome to hear it, Kimball. That's beautiful. Yeah, well, I mean, the problem with Hamasaki has literally been, well, she's best at it as an atom weight. We know that. And the UFC doesn't have atom weight. And when she was trying to get in the UFC, she was going to get in there, but then she lost to Souza, Olivia Souza. That was kind of what that whole fight was for, to see or show the UFC that she can, be fine at strawweight. And that was kind of a bummer and just a whole weird circumstance there. And that was when Souza was in her prime for sure. So that fight was kind of like a mini kind of small super fight there. I don't think she was champion yet, or she had just been champion, I think, Souza. But if Ayaka won that fight, she was going to get signed to the UFC. So that, as a strawweight, right? So not an atomweight, unfortunately. And Ghost says, do you think Hamasaki can triangle Aguilar when transitioned to an armbar like Whaley did? Hamasaki does do those submissions in the past. Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. It's maybe not body lock trip into side control like Whaley, but use her bottom. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's pretty likely. I don't think, we haven't seen Ayaka really trying to go for takedowns in quite a while. It's usually it comes to her, and then we see what she does from there. So I think that'll be pretty similar. And Jimmy says, what would you say is Jag's best weapon as a fighter? Man. It's kind of hard to say at this stage in her career. Like she used to have a pretty solid double leg, and just, both of her single and doubles, really, her takedowns, and could jab pretty well. But it's kind of weird. We don't really know what we're going to get out of her in this one, because of the fact she's been away for nearly 2 years now and dropping down in weight. But historically, Jimmy, I would kind of say those things. And Jumbo says, I'm familiar with Aguilar just because the Whaley submission. What is she good at? So kind of, as we've been touching on there, Jumbo, her wrestling is kind of her best, but she is also does have a boxing background. But yeah. So, all right, we got to move along, you guys. Getting way over now, but hey, it's all for the love of the tournament. Go on, see what happens, and we'll close things out with the main event, which is the champ, Jessica Aguilar, taking on one of the other newcomers, Laura Fontoura. This should be an interesting one as well. They all are, but we have somebody's always got to go. And you could look at this one, and probably should look at this as a little bit on paper of a layup for Sayaka, because we know she's the best in the world right now. Fontoura 21, so younger than her, but with one more fight. She's been submitting everybody for the most part. Headbutt DQ win there, which is kind of funny, but solid Andy win. Straight armbar at PA FC. That was the Cyborg show a while back, but very talented on the ground with her jiu-jitsu, but she also won the Brazilian, I think, national wrestling. I don't know what you want to call it, but she's got that in her back pocket too. So kind of a well-versed overall grappler who's also done Muay Thai, like a lot of your traditional kind of Brazilian, maybe, arts that you would get into as a young fighter and not stuck to them necessarily the same. And she will have the height advantage here on second. She'll be making her atomweight debut as well. So all the newcomers are actually making their debuts. But Sayaka, I think strength advantage is still going to be there. She's been a strawweight too before, so still a good sized, one of the better sized atomweights is Sayaka, despite her height. And she's continually, getting better with her striking and strikes into her positions very nicely. Just phenomenal at what she does. Finds opportunities when they aren't even there. But with Fontoura, who is also a good grappler and very skilled, savvy, and looking to make a statement here, not much to lose aside from obviously the opportunity. But like, this is a title fight for her, essentially. It's not technically a title fight, but main event, all these things. You'd think the pressure might be on Sayaka a little bit, but we know that this woman doesn't feel anything in terms of that. She treats everything the same. She is a cyborg, a robot, really. So I'm not too worried about her there. She's just so goddamn good at everything she does. I think she's going to be able to outmuscle Fontoura, despite, again, those little elements of size differences there. And use her judo and wrestling and all this stuff that has gotten her to the dance. Sekizawa, we already know. It's like you don't have to say much about her already anymore. Like we just know that she's that good. And of course, we're not even mentioning like the elements of the ring and the rule set, like all these things these new fighters have to adjust to. So, yes. No, you're okay, Sammy. We're about to wrap up. Just doing the damn thing. She says, do I compare Aguilar like Esparza where she just takes you down? Not the same. No, I think Jessica's much more comfortable striking than Carla is. And thanks for that, Ghost. Jimmy says, so is Izawa easy win, BS matchmaking, as you and Ghost like to say? I mean, it kind of automatically has to be, right? Like it's very weird in this kind of situation because obviously they're both still super young and 6-0 and 7-0, but Izawa's done the unthinkable and she's the best right now. So by that mark, yes, it totally is. But when you look at like those little things, it makes sense in that regard. But from the actual MMA standpoint perspective and where we are at this point in time, yeah, this one's a little off, just like the Reina one. Like realistically, you probably should have Fontoura fight Svetkivska, and then you could have done Sayaka versus Reina. If you were to switch them up, that'd be fine. More logical anyway. As Jin says, do you think Izawa versus Hamasaki similar to Volk Holloway, where even though the results is favored one person, you would still watch them fight 10 more times? That's a pretty great comparison. Yeah. Yeah, indeed. This goes to Izawa, another girl of the podcast. Awesome technical grappling and uses of the pedigree. Indeed. As Bruce says, why is APS matching with 7-0 opponent? Something. Like I said, Izawa has established herself as the best already, with those wins. And yeah, Rue, like I said, you could switch the opponents there, do Rena versus her, or, you could have done Khan as well. There's many ways you could have gone about it. But either way, we're not going to complain because it's all fun and good anyway. And I'd love to spend more time on it, but I got to go, you guys. So that is RIZIN 37. My goodness. I think this is the longest show of the new series, but it's all good. It was fun. I cannot wait for it. Most excited I am for an event this weekend. 277 should be all right, but I'm not too crazy. And like I said, Braun Rising episode 17 will be coming out this week to you guys with practically all of those fighters. So look forward to that. Good stuff, as always. Really enjoyed talking to all of them. It was a bit of a struggle, but we got it done. So don't forget, follow us, like, share, and subscribe. MMAmania.com. Hit that notification bell if you never want to miss a thing. I will be off to Vegas tomorrow, but that will affect nothing here. So, yeah, I guess until next week, you guys. Well, there might be BTL. I don't know if we'll do the tag team match, but we will see. We will see. So stay tuned for all that stuff. I will let you know. You know how it goes. And yeah, stay safe, stay sane. Enjoy the weekend of fights, you guys. And I will see you next Monday.